Space Quest 1. You know, this was a fun little game. I first got introduced to it when I was in college. Now, mind you, Space Quest was around since 1986. So I didn't get to play it until about 1993. All right. My roommate had a few Sierra titles that he gave me copies of. I mean, I eventually bought a legitimate copy, but that was the VGA version. But this was remarkably, I guess, a little bit ahead of its time. I mean, it's set in the future. It should be ahead of its time, let's face it. And one of the first things it introduced to this franchise was really making you the main character. I mean, you could select a name. They would later drop this in the from the third point on, but by they did have a default name set up, and it actually goes with Sierra's humor. You see, the protagonist's default name is Roger Wilco, which is basically an old radio communications thing. If you ever hear some of the old time movies and all that, you may hear them go, Roger Wilco, over and out. Roger basically means I understand. I got the message. I understand the message. So your response is Roger. And Wilco is short for will comply. I will. So Roger Wilco means I understand and I will comply. So, it's kind of a fun, the way it works is the humor in it, though, is just use that Roger Wilco. I mean, it's smooth, it goes fast. So, Roger Wilco. That's how we got the name of one of sci-fi's most unlikeliest heroes. And this game keeps you on your toes all throughout the game. Example, in this game, well, this game was really divided into sections. And I remember seeing some of these sections. It was one of those things they would display at some stores. Or demos would let you play some part of a game. The first part of the game, of course, has Roger waking up from taking a nap in the broom closet. And we are also told that Roger is a janitor. Highly praised position, at janitor. Or we could call him the more sophisticated term custodial engineer. Well, Roger then goes, of course, he finds out that the ship has been invaded by the vicious Saurians. So now you are on a quest to, one, escape the ship, and two, well, you're going to need, they have the they're taking the device known as the star generator, which is to help rejuvenate his home world, Xenon, its dying sun. Now, of course, this is to be used for good. And so, it's going to be used for evil. This is the way of science fiction. A weapon that could generate planets, that could terraform planets and create a new world, being used to destroy. In this case, rejuvenating a sun and destroy it. And so, we head down, so Roger must now evade. Now, at any time you can hear Saurians coming. So your objective is to, if you hear them coming, get out of sight! So, this is where it's dynamic in that part. Because you have to basically maneuver, find what you need. They're not going to enter, quote, an elevator to shoot you, and you can always go down a floor to avoid them unless they're coming on the downside floor. And of course, you had a split screen for a good portion of this. After that, you escape to the planet Corona. Not to be confused with what's been happening in recent years here, in which, again, you must survive. There are some nasty things, and one of their hunter androids, which is basically like a giant spider, comes down to the planet to get you. It can't climb up to higher levels for some reason, so you need to get to a higher level. Once you do that, and as well as get rid of the dangerous creature that is plaguing the inhabitants, this creature being the Orat, you move on to the next area, which is an underground area with very tricky dangers. In fact, the only way to get by is a series of traps that can be altered or adjusted using various things you find before you go down. So if you go down without any of these key items, you're screwed. And I say that because to get to this place, you have to cross a bridge that can only be crossed a certain amount of times before you fall to your death on it. Now after that, you get a nice little arcade sequence where you have to go across the wasteland on a skimmer device, skimmer craft, somewhat like the land skimmer in, I guess, similar to the land skimmer in Star Wars, where you must go to the colony known as Yulcentia Flats. I think that's how it was pronounced. So there you have to play a gambling game. Save early, save often. Over here where you need to go next to find the Saurians, get a ship and an android. Make sure you have your jetpack too. Now once you get through all that, you get a relatively smooth section. I suppose if you don't have the android, it makes it harder to do the travel to the Saurian spacecraft. And then once you get there, it's infiltrate, set the star generator to self-destruct, and escape. And you're heralded as a hero! In an ending right out of Star Wars. Now, it had a lot of sections where it was very early on. Hallmark of the, quote, move on without something and you're screwed bit. Some could be game enders, some could not be game enders. But it is an example of how well they set up for a more action-filled game. Hence why they always tend to have like a game of chance, I think, in this series, or something that can be purely left up to chance or an adventure standpoint where things are timed. We're doing something at the right time or doing an action at the right time is key. And this was a little bit different because also you didn't necessarily have, they could do a little bit more and show that they were developing their skills. I also have to admit that the Saurians were a pretty vague type of threat. You knew they were evil. You knew they would kill you on sight. But there were other things about it. You never knew where they were going to pop up from. You never knew when you were going to have to deal with them. You usually got a warning that you had to take advantage of, or you had to do it at just the right time. And some things were a lot trickier to get than other things. But the Saurians were a vague threat. You never got to meet a big bad Saurian. For pretty much all your encounters with them, they're just soldiers doing their duty. Yeah, that duty is to kill you if they see you, but uh, I mean, in one part, once Roger gets on board I believe it's called. I thought the ship was called the Arcadia, but I could be wrong. Once he gets on there and he manages to sneak into it, he ends up hiding in a washing machine, and the Saurian comes in and throws his uniform in the washing machine to get cleaned. Never noticing Roger there. I'm not going to ask how Roger survived that washing machine. He did. And you have to get your weapons from a security droid. I mean, let's face it, that's not necessarily, you know, the sign of a group of hardened warriors. They should always have their weapon on them. So maybe they're not the smartest. But if they're not the smartest, how the heck did they get the idea to steal the star generator? So, it left some things very open-ended for continuing a bigger story. Which they are able to do, of course. I mean, if you've been watching my channel and you've been watching my playthroughs, you know they had another plan. They had the star generator. No. So, you could find out from there what happened next. But it was the birth of a series. I mean, it was more, quote, adventure-oriented. Later on, they would still keep up with the oddball humor. But, we'll get to that. They still put in jokes, and it's still mainly a farce on science fiction. I mean, I think a good portion of Space Quest 1 literally did poke fun at Star Wars. And that's all I'm going to say about Space Quest 1. It's a very good game. This is also one that got a VGA remake. And to be honest, I do suggest playing the VGA remake. I ended up getting it when I started trying to get all the Sierra games. And believe it or not, the VGA remake did something neat because it came out at the time they were working on, or Space Quest 4 had been released, which was that had other key elements, one of which made you go back to Space Quest 1. So you see the Chrono Skimmer show up, or the whatever they call it, Chrono Skimmer, Chrono Hopper, I don't know. chronopod. I'm thinking so many things that have had time travel devices in it. But you see it show up in the VGA version. Although in Space Quest 4 you go back to the EGA version or CGA version of Space Quest, which is funny in and of itself. But that's all I'm going to say about Space Quest 1 right now. Like I said, it's the start of a good series. And the old school way, very understandable, very fun to play. And I think in the new, like in the VGA version, they kept up the if you forget something, you're screwed. Like I said, that's all I'm going to say about that. As always, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and check out all of my videos that go up. And always, have fun. Bye.